What is up, Jabronis? JJ back here with Spread and Susie talking a little tennis, ATP WTA. Some interesting tournaments here are brewing in the United States. I know on Monday you guys were there chatting, of course, on Washington, San Jose. We're a few rounds later into this tournament now. We'll be talking on the Thursday slate. There's only a few matches set for now, but we will be sure to address what we can, and then, of course, maybe even try to predict some lines for you as well. But either way, we could just get this started with what have you guys thought about these tournaments so far between Washington and San Jose? Of course, that are playing somewhat fast, but it's still a little bit of variance. But these are what I'd consider the maybe more on the women's side, but on the men's side, this is the second tournament, bigger tournament anyway, because Los Cabos is to me not as irrelevant, but it's not as big a tournament as like Atlanta is in Washington. But either way, what are your thoughts on how Washington's been, and then maybe how San Jose spread? What do you think?
Yeah, it just seems like the first hardcourt tournament of the year, right? Some of these players are adjusting to get back on the hardcourts. Now, I know some of them played the Olympics, but a lot of top players, for example, like Rafael Nadal on TV, did not. And I'll tell you what, it does look like his first hardcore match. So I think that it's going to look like that for this week, and then we'll see them get a lot more comfortable in the next couple of weeks.
Awesome. Susie, anything that's poked out to you early on between San Jose and here?
One thing is just the United States, the men playing. I feel like we got a good young bunch coming up now.
I think that's been the problem for years, right? Has been, we've had good men's players, very few great men's players. Obviously, Roddick rings a bell from years ago, but even him, he was in his prime at the wrong time. I feel like a Roddick in his prime maybe now would have been a little more competitive against the big three, but obviously he was in his prime when basically all three of them were basically in their prime. So, but either way, we haven't had a lot of big U.S. We've had a lot of heavily hyped U.S. players, young guys, but yeah, nobody's really made that corner turn yet. Korda could be the guy that does it for us, but either way, interested to see if we can get some better development there from U.S. players, because you're right that there's a lot of good ones, but really, there's no U.S. player inside the top 20, is there?
What is Isner right now? I don't think so.
Isner's way lower.
I think Fritz is actually the highest ranked American. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think it's Fritz. But to me, Isner's of them is the more consistent one.
Yeah. So okay. So we could just slide into it for Washington. So the first game that we have a line on anyway is Nakashima and Kudla. Nakashima, what is there to say about this kid? Big serve, returns very above average, especially for his age. Goes up against Kudla here. Spread. Any thoughts here? A big line for Nakashima, but I'd argue it's warranted, especially with how well he's played, how well he's held serve, how well he's been moving, especially on these hard courts. What are your thoughts on this match and any specific bets you like?
Yeah, I'm definitely not going to bet it. Obviously, Nakashima is rightfully favored, but I don't want to lay that much, and I don't even want to get involved in the spread. I know 3.5 isn't much on the men's side. It's so funny how it correlates so much higher for minus 294. That'd probably be 4.5 on the women's side. But regardless, I'm not getting involved. I think that if you were forced me to, the proverbial, you have $100, you have to bet this match, I'd probably take the plus 228. But it really didn't stand out to me as a spot that I circled because I didn't want to go against Nakashima right now.
One thing I'll say, Susie, before you add in your input is that it's interesting. You see this in tennis, right, where like a player like Nakashima may have had value a week ago in this marketplace, but now looking at sub 300 lines for some of this dude's matches. And look, not that Kudla deserves to be a bigger, a smaller dog here by any means with how they're both playing, but it elevates to value, right? Like if you have ceilings for players and where you determine, their true ceiling is as far as value relates in the betting marketplace, 310, this line seems awfully big for Nakashima. But Susie, what are your thoughts on this match? Any DFS things as well?
And that's my thing. So today I took Kudla against Fritz. But it was more a punting thing, and luck came on my side. One thing about Nakashima is he just went deep in the finals last week. And so for me, I always like to stay away once someone plays a lot of tennis because time after time, I see them get tired and they lose matches they have no business losing. And so I'm a little – like today, I didn't touch him. I didn't want to play him against Evans because Evans is a good player. We all know that. And so I was like, he might be tired, and he bageled Dan Evans. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I'll say with Nakashima is outside of finals matches in his last 2 weeks, he has been awesome. His serve percentage has been great. Now in finals, in his last 2 finals he's been in, you could almost see some nerve sparkle in there against Isner and then against Norrie the week before. where he's looked like a different player. His first serve percentage went way down in finals. Obviously, tomorrow's not going to be a finals match. So while it is 310, I do think there's somewhat of warranted there. But to me, Kudla has some value. Again, it's a tough bet to make because in reality, you're fading a very good player right now. But the marketplace, it has that line in it. So overall, you said it was 3.5 games for Kudla spread?
Yeah.
That would be a small lean for me. Again, I don't love the idea of so much fading Nakashima, but this is like an inflated line, to say the least, for the young kid.
Kudla's family was all at the game today. I don't know if he's from DC, but I remember Maddie mentioning that he had a bunch of people there. So take little things like that into account sometimes.
Expect them back tomorrow. So
Thank good.
Overall, and Nakashima's a U.S. kid, so he's going to probably get love anyway. But overall, Nakashima's been excellent. I just think that this line, a bit too inflated there. But we'll see how it plays out. Next match up for us would be, I got this right, Steve Johnson Berankis. So Stevie and Berankis here. They got Stevie lined at -135. Stevie's looked good this tournament thus far. Granted, he loves the U.S. hardcourt run. I mean, he had, especially earlier in his career, some decent runs here at the ATP Tour level for sure. Both players, I mean, I'd argue have not so much a hard track. Stevie Johnson upset De Minaur, which was impressive. But De Minaur, outside of his Atlanta trip a few years back, I mean, he's been okay on hard courts, for the most part. What are your thoughts on this one spread and anything you really like?
This is another one I'm not getting involved with, but you made a great point about Stevie Johnson looking so good on this American hard court swings. Beating everybody but Taylor Fritz. Lost to Taylor Fritz in San Cabo and also in Atlanta. I don't know. I'm not getting involved in this match here. Berankis is not really necessarily a player I'd like to get behind either.
Really?
The line seems right. You like Berankis?
Let me try. So Berankis looked really good yesterday. They played each other last year in the U.S. Open, and Berankis beat him in 4. I can't bet, but if I did, I would take a little stab at Berankis. I mean, he's been playing really good this season.
And from a value perspective, too, I'd argue you could maybe even wait there because Stevie Johnson, if there's one thing I know about him and players he's almost borderline coin flips against, he takes money on the U.S. soil. So it wouldn't be surprised if we wake up tomorrow and we see Stevie Johnson's like $160. Because, again, he just almost consistently takes money in these matches, especially once we head over to the U.S. circuit, which we, of course, are at. Now, a good point on Berankis because he looked excellent in his last match. I mean, he looked okay in the first match against the younger kid. I forgot who he played, the guy with the decent serve. But in the last match, he looked really good. I think he forced almost 20 break chances for himself, which is
against
phenomenal.
Steve Johnson.
Just absolutely phenomenal. And then Stevie Johnson, of course, has an above-average serve, but it's not near what it once was. So expect Berankis to put a little pressure on him there. I'd argue with the line. I agree with you, Susie. This is a borderline a coin flip, and the fact that you can get 110 on Berankis maybe makes sense. I just feel very confident anyway that Stevie Johnson's likely to take money here. If you're going to bet it, you likely should wait on it. But for DFS purposes, anything you like there, Susie, for this match?
I'm hoping to get Berankis at a cheap price. I mean, Stevie was priced very high today. I would love that. I would take him as a dog, and he'll end up being really chalky. He was chalky the other day. I could see him being chalky again here if he is.
Awesome. By the way, that point, I'm not sure if you guys were on and off watching it. Jesus.
Right to the leg.
That point Nadal just won will likely be on SportsCenter. I mean, that point could have been over a few different times. All right. So anyway, Jenson Brooksby and Felix, FAA, Auger-Aliassime. Brooksby, right? What's there to say about him? Young kid, big serve. You would expect this to somewhat be a serve fest. However, what I notice about Felix when he plays other bigger servers is that he struggles severely to return bigger servers. Now, granted, he's been gifted somewhat of not so much an easy road here, but outside of his Zverev win, the Kyrgios win to me at Wimbledon's Kyrgios got hurt, so I'm not sure how much that's relevant. But he consistently struggles to find any levels of consistency against big serves. Brooksby, for his age, has a very big serve. And I'm interested to see how the return games here work. The total on this match, it's got to be, 24.5, 23.5, something in that area with the bigger serves.
Yeah.
Actually, 22.5 to me, I find that extremely low. Now, I know that the other thing with these two players, and Felix is notorious for this, and Brooksby's young, so we'll give him a little bit of benefit of that on certain aspects. Super nervous on break chances, and both sides in terms of them converting and holding their own. What are your thoughts here, Spread, in terms of two young players going at it? And obviously, Felix is a little more mature because he's been around more. But how that relates to this match, I see 22.5. 22.5 just seems easily like a game or two low. You would think there's a decent shot at a tiebreak in this one. And if there is, then, you're looking good for an over there. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I agree with you on the over. Jordan Brooksby was a player that I hadn't watched a lot, so I made sure to watch his match with Tiafoe yesterday. And let me say, as an introduction to the player on a tape study, that was a pretty good match to introduce me to him, right? I mean, I'm pretty excited to get behind him again, and bet on him. I didn't bet last night, but I definitely was taking notes. I was impressed with what I saw. I mean, Tiafoe can be inconsistent, but it wasn't, I didn't think, like the worst performance. I didn't think he gave it away. My issue here is he's going against a player that I love to bet on, unless it's a final, and that's FAA here. And I know that he didn't play well at the Olympics, but I loved his Wimbledon run. So my main concern, I guess, would be with the travel, but a 3-set win over Seppi. Hopefully he's here. He's no longer jet lagged and he's ready to go. I like FAA here, but minus 172 is too much, so I'll stay away.
Susie, any thoughts on this one? Maybe even how it relates to DFS. This could be a bit of a surf fest.
It could. I don't. From a DFS, I used to love playing Felix. I kind of got away from him a bit because he gets into a lot of double fault trouble. Seen him just. But, against Seppi, he actually didn't double fault too much. I don't like that Seppi almost bageled him in the first set. I definitely see this match going 3, so I wouldn't take Felix in the DFS side because you want straight sets. I don't mind taking a chance on Brooksby, but I do think Felix edges him out in 3.
Also, man, I think that it's going to be one of those matches where you might not see a lot of break points, but I think there's a good chance you could see a lot of break conversions off those points or off those opportunities because, again, I watch Felix enough to see how it seems like super nervous even still to this point in his career. He's super young, though, so I say to this career because he's been in the circuit now for a few years on his own break conversions. On his own break chances on his own racket. And Brooksby's, young too, and, second serves are going to be big in this. First serve percentage is going to be big in this. But interesting match overall. I agree with your points that Felix is likely a bit too big here. But, again, from an experience perspective, you would figure he would reign true. I
think you got it right, though, JJ. Why are we going to sit here and try and figure out who's going to win this match that we think is lined pretty well when we can attack the number that we think is a mistake? And that's
take that over.
Yeah, so that's the bet that I made. That's the only bet I have for Washington right now. I mean, I know you didn't. It wasn't, a huge, long speech, but you sold me. I'm with you here. I love the over here. And when Susie says, "Hey, I think it's going to go 3 sets," that makes me like it even more.
Yeah, I think you're 22. You're 22 and a half. Like, this is the type of line for me that maybe it shouldn't be 23 and a half, but it should be at least 22 or 23. 23 is a pretty key number, right? Because you get that tiebreak in the 10 gamer where it pushes. So for me, 22 and a half just seems like a mistake with 2 bigger servers. And of course, it'll win if it goes 3 sets. But yeah, overall, I like that look. Now, we don't have lines yet, but Opelka Millman, what are you thinking that line could be, Spread?
I'd say Riley minus 140 to minus 160.
Let me see if we see anything here. Yeah, I don't see anything. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that makes sense. I think overall, Millman's a gritty guy, right? Like, I'm a Millman guy. I've been a Millman guy. Moves well. Definitely his preferred surface here on hard court. He doesn't have that huge serve, but he's got a great 1-2 punch. And he's always been an above average returner. So I think that this does fit well for Millman. I think you're right. We will likely see that line in that 165 area. And if we do, where you can get Millman at 130, I don't mind that personally at all if that's truly the line. I thought he looked good against one of the Ymer brothers, or Ymer, I think it's pronounced, right? Spread?
Mm-hmm.
So overall, I'm interested to see what this line is. But I know that you get the big server in Opelka on this hard court, and he looked good today. But he should get challenged more from a return perspective with Millman. And his first serve percentage will have to be big because I'd expect Millman to start firing back second serves. And Opelka likely won't do much on Millman's serve. So overall, it'll be a lean for me at Millman if that's the price. Susie, any thoughts for this match?
So I didn't like the fact that Millman struggled a little bit today. I mean, he won in straights, but I didn't he felt like he should have crushed this Ymer that he played. I like Opelka, but I don't want to touch it. I'm concerned with his MTO he took today on his back. And I've seen him take one last year, and the next day he withdrew in the middle of the match. So just my only concern. Is he healthy? If his
Fair
back's helping him, he wasn't hitting aces like he usually does. So, I mean, I don't mind taking Millman, taking a chance there if he's not healthy.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. So Sinner Korda, again, another line we don't have, another match we don't have odds on. I mean, you
match of the day, though, right? If you can only watch one, this is the one.
Yeah, you would assume, at least even at a surface level, that Korda is probably a slight favorite here. But you think minus 150, minus 120 spread? Am I off there?
I was going to say Sinner would be a slight favorite, and that Korda would take money.
Okay, so I guess that could have. So I'll tell you what. Before the match today, I would have been 100% that Korda would have been the favorite. I just thought today Sinner looked really good. Today,
I don't think one result would say it, right? I think that when we do these matches, that they could set the lines before the tournament starts.
Oh, sure, I agree. I agree with that. I guess what I'm getting at more is if you're an odds maker and you're trying to figure out where you're gonna get money, you're right. Korda likely takes money here.
Yeah, which is why I would think they would make Sinner the favorite to start with.
Yeah, he definitely could be. And he looks from a ranking standpoint, of course, he's that as well. It's just he's been notorious for not being an excellent hardcourt player in Sinner yet. Korda just is built to play on the surface. I mean, so interesting to see how this line moves out and plays out in that respect. But overall, what are your thoughts on the match spread?
Yeah, I like Korda here, and anything less than like minus 140, it'll probably be a play. You mentioned before, Sinner's a great player, a great young talent here, but we got the surface edge and kind of the home field edge here. Anything less than 150, I think there's value, and I'll go ahead and take Korda.
Susie, what are your thoughts on Korda? Hopefully could be the next great white hope for the U.S. in general. I do see some red flags myself with him, but either way, what are your thoughts?
A little on the other end, I actually think Sinner may be favored.
Okay.
Him being the top player, but I would take Korda also. Last week, I don't know if you saw, but Sinner played O'Connell, the Australian, and he looked awful. And today, I mean, he looked much better today. But I just think he's in his groove right now. I think he hands it to Sinner. I hope that we can get him as a dog. I don't know why I think Sinner will be favored, but it could be either way. But it'll be really close. You might even see one be like minus 110, the other one even.
Here's why I'll tell you why I truly think. Well, I guess you're right, because I'm thinking, looking back, Rusevori looked extremely good last week, and yet Sinner still opened a $160 versus him, or opened about $140 and moved to $160. So you guys could be right in that respect, but I do think there'll be value. I mean, look, if Korda opens as a dog, I mean, to me, there's definite value there overall. But again, if Sinner looks anything like he did today again, he was literally going line to line against Rusevori, who, again, it's not exactly like Rusevori's been in bad form. I mean, he kind of found his form last week, and I thought he played relatively well today, but Sinner was just unreal. Okay, so we could slide over to the women's end of things, where I'll rely on you guys more. I haven't been following too much of what's been going on in San Jose, but it looks like one of the first matches tomorrow will be Sloane Stephens, Danielle Collins, two players that I would be honest, I do not like betting either player. I just feel like they're two players I never really get right anyway. And look, I think that Sloane has made Sloane kind of dug herself out of a grave as far as how her form looked earlier in the year and even late last year, and how it looked going into the French and all that. Her serve has a bit of question marks for me in general, but overall, what are your thoughts on this match with them two? Obviously, Collins runs a bit hot, right? Emotions could, flying from that respect, but she's 235 here. Do you think that's priced right, spread? Or do you think you have any value there on any side?
Yeah, I think it's priced right. It's funny that you mentioned that. I actually like to bet against Sloane, and I like to bet on Danielle. So normally this would line up to me for a Collins bet. Two reasons. Number one, I think the price is right or maybe a little high. And number two, Sloane looked pretty fit yesterday. I'm starting to see it looks like she's taking it a little more seriously. I think this is the most in shape she's looked since 2018. She looked pretty quick moving around the court. And the reason I can't make this bet, if she really plays her best, she can beat Danielle at her best. How often does she play her best? 5-10% of the time, but it's still there, and it's still an issue for me. So there's no way I'm going to play that at minus 215.
Awesome. Susie, any thoughts there with Collins and Sloane?
Give me Collins. I think Collins beats her in straights easily. Sloane was down 5-0 yesterday and somehow came back in that match. I fell asleep. I was like,
yeah, but then she won like 7 games in a row or something. So it's like,
But see, if she struggles like that against Collins, she's not going to win 7 games in a row against Danielle. I mean, Sloane was playing McNally, she's garbage.
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess I was just impressed with Sloane's fitness level before, and the fact that when I had watched her before and she falls apart, she had no problem just heading out to the club or wherever and just grabbing her bag and moving on to the next tournament. The fact that she fought back, even though it was against McNally, you make a good point. I was still impressed by it. Not enough to bet on her, but just enough to keep me off Collins.
The good part with Danielle is you likely get a better serving performance from her here. I mean, they served 40-something% against Rogers. She likely serves better than that. And her first serve is still good. And she found some form in the clay run late, a week or two ago. So, maybe she can parlay that into good form here. I agree with you. I think that overall, you would assume Collins is going to be able to put more pressure on Sloane's serve, which you're right, Spread. She's been looking better physically as far as her fitness levels. But her serve speed has to be down. She has been having a ton of pressure on her first serves. And when she was in her bigger run a few years back, I mean, her first serve was pretty reliable. I haven't really seen that from her on the clay run, but I'm interested to see how it plays out.
That's a good point. I'm going to look into that. I wonder if that's a coaching issue. A lot of times, they're especially on the serve, they're told to do that, especially if it's not like a huge first serve and then a slow second serve, which to me indicates lack of confidence. When it's a slow first serve too, I'm thinking it's being coached or it's some sort of strategy. So
she could be target hitting, right? I mean, just a little lower speed, trying to hit specific target. Yeah. Gets a ton of pressure on her serves.
We've talked about some men's players that have success for that. The women typically can't dial it up quick enough to just rely on placement. But she might be able to get away with it. But hey, that's something I'm going to look forward to watch because I'm pretty big on this match tomorrow from a spectator's perspective, even if I'm not going to bet on it.
Awesome. So we can go over to Rybakina and Claire. Is it pronounced Liu?
Yep.
Fred? So now Rybakina, big favorite here. And she hasn't played much hard surface this season, but her game is definitely suited for this surface, especially with the big serve and the big forehands. Of course, she can be a little erratic at times, but against the right opponent, she most often can clean up her errors. Liu beats Yastremska, who's been very out of form. But again, Yastremska, you would figure will pick up some momentum on the hard courts here, but it obviously wasn't against Liu here. Liu is a big dog. Any thoughts here? I know Rybakina is your girl spread. Do you have anything you like here? I know it's a big line, -500. You could argue laying a game at a set and a half, but that'll be even like $170. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get involved with this match, take the under 20. And that way 6-4, 6-4, you still push. If it's 19.5, I wouldn't advise it because I don't want to be dependent on the coin flip. But I feel pretty safe about the under 20. Claire Liu, I'll play
20.5 at DK spread at $125, which to me is, I don't know what the offshore numbers are right now, but 20 is such a critical number in tennis. And you can get 20. You get 20. DK 20.5. Yeah. I mean,
I think I would prefer this under 20 at -104 and just take the push. And this is kind of hypothetical. I mean, like, how do you approach that? I usually try and go for the lower vig.
You can create. I mean, you can create it. Like I always tell this to people too. Like you see 20.5 and 19.5, just bet half your normal wager size on each, and then you've organically created 20. So yeah, the vig won't be the same though because at that point combining 125 and the dog price at 105 would mean if you lost you'd lose more money, but if you won you would win a little more money because the 20 is actually +105. So you'd win. That extra vig.
Okay, so if I were betting on yours and I can get +105 on that 20, I would take the 20. And if you push, you push. But rather than lay the -118, it's one of those things. If you went through and you figured it out over the course of the year, every time you had a total, if you took the lower vig, I mean, I don't know for sure, but I would wager that you'd be better off taking the lower vig every time, and then it lands on the number far less than the amount that you get the extra money because you're going from +105 to +125. So I'm getting 30 cents for just not to land on the number.
Yeah, I think that overall, well, in reality, it's actually +105 because it's -125 at 20.5 and then +105 at 19.5.
19.5. Okay, that's a little different. That's a little different.
Yeah, because you would create 20.
Because then you lose on the 20. Okay.
Yeah, but the difference with of course your bet would be if the bet wins.
Yeah.
You'd get the extra 5 cents of vig. Yeah. That you wouldn't get at 104 or -104 like you have. Yeah. But either way, if you lose, you end up losing the extra 8 cents because of the difference there. But
And it doesn't sound like a lot, but you start betting tennis every day and losing those extra 8 cents adds up over the year, or what we more try to do, and that's avoid losing the 8 cents. I personally always will go for the lower vig unless it just seems to be some sort of like extreme situation where like I feel comfortable breaking my rule.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Susie, any thoughts on this match?
Rybakina should win. They just played last month. She beat her 6-4, 6-4, so it was very close. They played at Wimbledon. She shouldn't struggle here. I am impressed with this young American, though. I mean, I thought she's been playing pretty decent tennis, but I mean, I love Ryba. I play her all the time.
Yeah, you would likely think she lays down here. I mentioned what that line was a few weeks back because I always like to get correlated line or look at correlated lines and how they relate to future matches to try to extract value if you can. Of course, that assumes the previous line was in fact correct, which is a different conversation. But either way, yeah, fat line here. Both everybody likes Rybakina, but again, how do you bet it? Under 20.5 or 20 overall, creating that would probably make the most sense. Okay, so Mladenovic and Elise Mertens. Now, Elise Mertens is your girl, spread. Mm-hmm. What do you think on her here? A gigantic favorite. Mladenovic is a player that I will never bet as a favorite. Anytime she's a favorite, I can care less. I won't bet her as a favorite. She's just too Jekyll and Hyde for me. As a big dog like this, though, nothing to lose. Do you see any value on her here, or Mertens just wipes the floor with her?
Not today. Mertens is too consistent against players that she's better than. Mertens is the player that I think the most tennis bettors want to back. The player that wins when she's a favorite. I mean, she's fairly easy to handicap in my mind. Unfortunately, the odds makers know that too, which is why I'm looking at a minus 588, which is unplayable. The dreaded 19.5, which we discussed earlier, but I got to lay 120 to get that. Minus 5.5, no. I mean, I think Elise is going to win, but they basically priced us out of this market. I can't find an edge in this match.
Now, what about this, bro? When you see lines like that just appear out of nowhere inflated, right? Because if you asked me, or if you asked me what this line was, I would have likely told you Mladenovic plus about 350-ish, 340-ish. But on the other end, Mertens would probably be like 500 for me, minus 550. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing, upwards of on DK 650, and I just saw 700 actually came down to 650. It just seems a bit inflated. Do you look at that as, well, you know what, maybe now some value on Mladenovic, or just I don't want any piece. There's no number I'd want to bet Mladenovic at, so I won't.
Yeah, in this situation, there's not a number that I'm going to take Mladenovic at just because I don't. Mertens is just too consistent, She's the exact opposite of most of the WTA. Where you never know what you're going to get day to day, and I can throw you on two different tapes, and they look like different players. And Mertens is fairly consistent every time, so I don't see any value in opposing her here, even at this inflated number.
That's fair. Susie, what are your thoughts on both these players, and the line as is, maybe even some DFS thoughts?
I see. Mertens should roll. From a DFS perspective, I never play Mladenovic. How do you say her name?
Mladenovic.
I completely say it wrong. I say Mladenovic or anyways, I never play her. The only time I play her is if she's pretty cheap and she's playing somebody that just she has a chance, or there's like an 8-game slate or something. I hate playing her because all she does is double fall, and I just can't with her.
Yeah, I can't blame her. Ultimately, it's not a lot you can do with a line like this. Obviously, Spread mentioned the 19 number, and Susie obviously likes Mertens to roll as well, but and even 19 is a scary number, right? Because for a few different reasons,
the coin flip matters too much.
Yeah, if they don't serve first, they need a double break in a set, which they still could get, but it's a big difference if they don't need it. They go 6-3, 6-4. But either way, we'll move on to the next and final match for this video, at least, which is Tomljanovic and Putintseva. I'll tell you this, at a surface level, and this is a pick'em. At a surface level, for me, Putintseva will really struggle with Tomljanovic because Tomljanovic basically just gets everything back. If Putintseva is going to try to get everything by her, she will likely pile up unforced errors, and Tomljanovic will just let it, just be the racket, be the wall, if you will, just kind of get things back. And it'll happen enough where you're either going to look at this match at the end and there's going to see one of two things. You're either going to see Putintseva with a ton of winners and she'll win this 2-0, or you're going to see Putintseva with a ton of unforced errors and she'll lose 0-2. I'd lean the latter here as a pick'em because while I do often like to back players where I'll win and lose on their own rackets, This matchup in particular, and what I've seen from Tomljanovic, is more of somebody who likely will get everything back from Putintseva here and just make her rattled more than anything. So overall, I lean Tomljanovic in this spot. What do you think, Spread?
Yeah. The main disagreement I think I would have with you, I think Putintseva wants to play the same style of match. I don't think that she's necessarily going to get aggressive against Isla. I think this is going to be a really long match. I don't know if it's going to go over, but I think it's going to take a lot of time.
A lot of long rallies.
Yeah. I personally like Putintseva here. I was actually kind of impressed with how well she played against Donna. But this is really a tough match to get involved with. Like, because if you say Isla, I can't really, this is a match where if we did beforehand and you said, hey, you have to make an argument for this person, it'd be pretty easy for me to make an argument on both sides. And that's because both women are in fantastic form right now. I was really impressed with Isla's Wimbledon run. Of course, then she withdrew from the Olympics, I think. Oh, no. That was her opponent. I'm sorry. She lost to Svitolina in the second round there. And then she beat Anisimova, who I didn't think played her best yesterday. And Isla did what you talked about and just kept getting it back and waited for her to beat herself. I lean Putintseva here, so I'm kind of against you, but I don't necessarily love that play because Isla's playing so well right now.
No, it makes sense. Susie, what do you think about this match, the last and final one?
I definitely see it going 3. From a DFS wise, I wouldn't touch it. I was just looking right now. So they played last August, and Putintseva won 6-0, 6-4. And then earlier in January that year, but in Australia, Aja won 7-6, 6-2. So I just think it can go either way. I wouldn't touch it. I think it goes 3.
No, and it's fair because I think that it's you could easily get a really good set from Putintseva and then a really bad set from Putintseva. So then you're going to have your 3 sets there. But I think overall, this is going to be more won and lost on her racket. And I'm interested to see if she takes that style that you mentioned, Spread, about them going Putintseva being very content to just go back and forth. Because then what does Tomljanovic do? Right? I mean,
I think they just grind each other out. I think it's going to be and normally I favor Putintseva in these situations, right? I mean, she's just a firecracker as far as her training, her fitness. Very rarely do I see her fatigued on court. Isla had some issues with that lately. She's been really good about her fitness too. So maybe it's the new boyfriend. Maybe getting her to play a little more tennis here rather than just running around and clubbing with Kyrgios all night. But for whatever reason, Isla is now a fitness machine as well. Probably the best look, like Susie said, is go ahead and take the over and just watch these ladies grind each other out for 3 hours.
So that basically wraps it up. I think collectively, at minimum, our best bet from the show and Spread, Susie, correct me if I'm wrong, the over 22.5, Brooksby and Felix. I don't often like betting overs at that number because I know that, one small break in each set and obviously the bet's toast. However, I do think there is, first of all, a good chance that this could go 3 sets. And then there's the tie break 10 bag in the mix with it being 22.5. So overall, Spread, correct me if I'm wrong, was that our best bet?
Yeah, I agree. And normally we'd like to all give one. And of course, Susie, you can give one if you like. But I'm just going to go ahead and piggyback with you and just go ahead and give the disclaimer. Hey, guys, tennis, 11 months out of the year, there's not going to be mistakes every night. Okay, so there's going to be days that I'll have 3 or 4 plays, and I think that the books are just wrong. And then there's days like today where I look up and I'm like, you guys did a pretty good job. Like, if I was writing these lines, this is pretty close to what I would say. And a lot of times we do the exercise like we did earlier where you said, what do you think this line will be for Korda? And then I create the line before the line's actually out. And then if it's really close to what I've created, then I just go ahead and lay off. And that was the situation that we had a lot today. But I'm pretty confident in the one that we gave out, and that is the over in FAA and Jensen Brooksby, right?
Yep, 100%. Susie, any DFS folks going into the slate tomorrow that you're going to be big on?
Definitely on Korda. I know that's going to be. He's either going to be priced as a dog or he's going to be like that mid range where he's the dog and he's the favorite and you don't see any dogs until it's his opponent right there. So I'm definitely going to lock him in. I'm really excited about that match.
Awesome.
Probably if I can get Mertens, I'll get her in my lineup. She should smash.
Susie, let me ask you one question before we jump out of here. So on Thursday, one of my favorites that I even named my little kitten after, Kasatkina, is going to play against Lynette, who you like. Does Dasha have a chance?
Kasatkina. We were on her today, on her Thursday. Let me tell you, what a turnaround she's had, because last year and the year before, like half the year, she couldn't win a match. And now she's been really good. I'll take Kasatkina here.
Oh,
in
cool.
3.
Good to hear.
That's another one that'll go 3.
Okay. Love it.
I love me some Kasatkina. Her a few years ago when she went on a run where she won a bunch of matches in a small stretch. It was like a month or so where she just kind of went 8 for a while. She hasn't been the same since, but she's a tremendous slicer. I'm not sure how well that'll play out here against Lynette, but either way, should be a fun match. So anyway, thank you everybody for watching and staying in the live chat as well. Got content lined up on the channel for the next few days. Joey's got you covered in baseball today. I believe there'll be another NFL preview show this week.
No, next week. Next one won't be till next Tuesday.
Next week.
But the other one's already up.
That's right. That's right. So if you haven't checked that out as well, preview show for was it AFC?
We did the East, AFC and NFC.
AFC East. So they'll preview each division as we go week by week. But again, Joey will have you covered in bases tomorrow. I'll be back for bases for Friday. And then again, of course, the normal rundown for the weekend. Check us out, Run Pure Bets. Also check out Run Pure Sports for tennis content as well, where you can find Susie. Other than that, as always, folks, gamble responsibly, stay safe, and as always, run pure. We'll see you guys next time.